Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Godzilla, King of the Monsters special, published by Dark Horse Comics in 1987. Oh, I guess it says #1, even though there was no other issue of this. This is a interesting comic because it's the first movie license that Dark Horse ever did. This came out before Aliens, their groundbreaking continuation of the Aliens franchise. And it's mainly interesting because of the contributions of Stephen Bissette. And he does this cover, as you could probably tell if you know his art. This is a classic Bissette art. I love this. The subway car is just thrown about like toys. And Godzilla's got such a, in a way, like a weird, goofy character design. He's very bottom heavy. He kind of looks like he's got he's a dumpy lizard. Needs to work out a little. But I like this too. This is kind of cute. They replaced the horse in the Dark Horse logo with the Godzilla's silhouette. We have a little introduction from Randy Stradley, who one of the writers on this, also a big wig at Dark Horse Comics. I think he was one of the founders. So the credits are kind of all over the place. There's a lot of guys helped out with this. So it's a story, Randy Stradley with Steve Bissette. Though I have a feeling from reading this that Steve Bissette contributed a lot of the ideas. It definitely, this comic has a very apocalyptic view of Godzilla. It's, I guess the first one kind of had that. But, you know, if you've watched the Godzilla movies, pretty soon they get very silly and goofy. But this is not taking that approach. They're deadly serious about the threat that Godzilla poses to humanity. Pencils, Steve Bissette and Ron Randall. Inks, Art Nichols with Tony Salmons. And so I don't know if this was just maybe there was a deadline crunch and people had to jump in the breach, you know. I wouldn't be surprised with the way Steve Bissette works. Apparently, from all accounts, he's very erratic, shall we say. He's lazy. It sounds like, from hearing Rick Veitch talk about him, he just can't get his shit together sometimes. I think he was a big stoner back then, smoking pot all the time. So he'd come up with this amazing shit, but he just sometimes couldn't finish it, and it'd lose steam. And that's why there's relatively, you know, other than Swamp Thing, there's not much Steve Bissette out there in the past, you know, few decades. So we start off, we're in Japan, and we see this woman in a large apartment building, and she's thinking back to when she was a little girl, the day that Godzilla attacked. The day the towers fell, she calls it. Look at that. That's a nice double-page spread. This looks pretty much like all Bissette to me, though I can see those Art Nichols inks. Art Nichols wasn't that great. He did a lot of inking for Dark Horse over the years. I think he started at Marvel and then kind of became a Dark Horse regular. It's interesting, this logo, I think, is the same exact logo Marvel Comics made when they had their Godzilla comic. But I guess once they lost the license, Toho, the film company that put out the Godzilla movies, they own all those comics, basically. If you can see, there's that little girl. You can barely tell. If you look at this quick, you'd miss her. I like that, how she's just this insignificant little insect compared to Godzilla. Look how freaking long his tail is. It's like 3 times longer than his body, it looks like, the way Bissette draws it. Pretty scary Godzilla, though. I mean, this is not whatever, Godzilla's Revenge era Godzilla with Minya, his nephew, or I guess it's his son. And we see Godzilla slumbering. And he's starting to wake up because he hears the call. We'll find out what that is in a second. So all these other things are happening around this time, like weird phenomena. This plague of locusts is going across the world. And now we cut away to that woman as a little girl. Her name's Noriko. Her father is Professor Yoshiwara, who's an archaeologist. And we're at a construction site where the construction is being held up because they discovered this artifact, a giant slab, which seems to have all of these runes on it in some strange ancient language. The foreman of the construction site is kind of pissed off about the whole situation. Not only is his work being held up, but apparently the slab is emitting radiation, and the radiation is increasing every day. So they kind of get in an argument. There's apparently a little hole in the slab, and one of the workers sticks his arm inside, and all of a sudden he's like, ah! Okay, as you can tell here, Ron Randall's taking over on pencils. Not nearly as good. This looks like, that's definitely Steve Bissette there. That's a weird looking little girl. So that worker, they pull his arm out, and there's this giant, like, I don't know, a lamprey just ripping his arm off. Pretty horrifying. Yoshiwara picks up a pickaxe, and kills this little creature. And Noriko sees the whole thing. She's pretty traumatized. Later that night, she wants to talk to her father, but she notices her father is just engrossed with the translations of the slab. Also, he's reading about all of these worldwide phenomena that are happening. And the runes on the slab, when they're translated, basically talk about this age of monsters, and how he's basically putting two and two together, and he's like, this is not good. We see an article about the plague of locusts. There's a UFO sighting by some airplane pilots. And it doesn't look like a flying saucer. It looks like a fucking kaiju. This giant flying monster. A sea creature, giant sea creature, destroys a boat out in the ocean. And Yoshiwara thinks the world's fate was sealed. He's figured it out. He knows what's going on. This looks more like a Ron Randall Godzilla face to me. It seems like for the most part, the monsters are drawn by Bissette. Most of the humans, just normal people, are drawn by Ron Randall. So Godzilla's fully awakened, and he's heeding the call. So basically the slab, the radiation it's emitting, is summoning these monsters, awakening them after centuries of slumber, maybe even thousands of years. Yoshiwara runs to the construction site, and he says, we have to dump that slab in the middle of the ocean immediately. And they're like, what? You're crazy. And he tells them about what he found, about the disaster monsters from thousands of years ago. I guess every few thousand years they wake and are drawn to the slab. And they are not convinced. He loses his job even. They're just like, you're crazy. And he goes home to his wife, and the locusts start appearing in Tokyo. And he's like, shit, we're too late. We see Godzilla swimming through the ocean. He looks kind of cuddly there. Looks almost like Godzuki from the old cartoon. So the father grabs his family. He's like, we got to get out of town. But of course, everyone else is thinking the same thing. They grab a taxi. The taxi's completely stuck in traffic, so they jump out. They're running by the harbor. I love this vision. It's just a horrific vision. You can't even see the water in the harbor. All of the sea life of the ocean has basically choked the harbor. Like they're basically terrified of Godzilla, and they're all just clogging up the harbor. We see a dolphin and a shark even. Even the shark's terrified. So Yoshiwara grabs this motorcycle. And now we cut back to Godzilla fully attacking. He's made it to land. This looks like Ron Randall to me. That's a pretty crappy looking Godzilla. It's kind of sad that, like, it's almost like they're trying to slavishly draw Godzilla how he is in the movies. But those movies had, like, zero special effect budget. So comics don't have a budget. If you're a penciler and an inker, you can draw billions of dollars worth of special effects with the flash of a pen, You don't have to make it look as crappy as it was. A guy in a rubber suit, That's what Godzilla was. It's not so bad, though. Some of this thinking is really interesting to me. It's, I don't know if it's Art Nichols or Tony Salmons. I don't know if you guys remember Tony Salmons. He was such an interesting artist. The fact that he was working at Marvel. I think he even did, like, a Spider-Man annual or something, which is, like totally as mainstream as you can get. But his style was not mainstream at all. It was very quirky and unique. And, there was this period in the 80s, even though it was Jim Shooter's reign, who was known for being very rigid about his ideas about comics. And yet there was guys like Mark Badger, Tony Salmons, Kyle Baker, drawing these mainstream Marvel comics. These guys did not have the Marvel style down. They had their own quirky, unique styles. Kind of an interesting period. So I can't really point out which is Tony Salmons. His stuff was kind of rough. So I guess it's the rough stuff is probably him. And so Godzilla, last time he was here, there was no buildings. And for some reason it pisses him off. He's just like, what is all this shit? This wasn't here last time I was here. And he starts using his flame breath on Tokyo. Just demolishing the city. So now Yoshiwara goes back to the construction site and says, I told you guys. And so now this guy realizes they've got to drop the slab in the ocean. They should have listened to Yoshiwara. So Godzilla's already there. He's made it to the site. And other monsters are coming too. I love the design on this one. That is definitely Bissette. Just the horrificness of that. Steve Bissette's so good at just drawing these nightmare monsters that are just very scary. I don't even know what I'm looking at here with this monster. But that's the locust monster. That's why the plague of locusts happened. It was almost like a herald. They were heralds of, what's his name? Actually, I don't know. Locostro. So, Yoshiwara says, I'm going to fly a helicopter. I'll distract Godzilla. You're a better pilot. You take it to the Japan Trench and dump it in the ocean. It's a suicide mission, and he knows it. His wife knows it. So they have a tearful farewell. And so Yoshiwara flies his helicopter right into Godzilla's head. Kind of nice dynamic panels there. And the gas tank, it drips all over Godzilla's face, ignites. He's in pain. He's lashing out, just destroying tons of buildings. But it does work, and it gives the other helicopter a chance to fly out to the ocean. With Godzilla obviously in hot pursuit, because he still is heeding the call. Here's what I'm talking about, some of this inking. Very kind of like chunky. I don't know. Look at these scales here. This could be Tony Salmons, actually. So, and then Godzilla in his pain, he's knocking over all these buildings, and the rubble of one of them falls on the mother, Noriko's mother, and kills her right in front of Noriko's eyes. So Godzilla's in hot pursuit of the helicopter, and the other monsters show up. They're in pursuit too. Ah, that is so great. That's so Bissette. No way in hell that's Ron Randall. Amazing stuff. I can't remember if this is supposed to be Rodan or Ghidra. I don't really, I'm not that knowledgeable about those movies. Even as a kid, I was never that into them. I'd watch them because they were weird. But I don't know, they just seem so silly to me. And so Godzilla's swimming in the ocean, chasing after this helicopter. This flying, whatever, Rodan shows up. And the guy realizes he's got to release it. It's now or never. And he drops the slab in the ocean. And all the monsters go chasing it, diving into the ocean to the depths. And basically it saves the day. Now these monsters are going to be, dormant for another few thousand years. The age of monsters was ended for now. And Noriko thinks my world was ended forever. So in the rubble, Noriko finds one of the scales of, I think it's Godzilla. It just says one of the monsters. And now we see her back in the present as an adult. It looks like she has a diagram of Godzilla on her wall and a laboratory. It looks like she inherited her father's scientific acumen. And using the scale, she's deciphered. She came up with a key that will unlock the door of death for Godzilla. Sleep, Godzilla. But should you ever awaken, I will be waiting. So just like all the Dark Horse movie adaptations, they really basically take it off in its own direction. It's not just like, oh, we're going to adapt the movie. Like, they obviously had plans for this woman to be, she was going to be like the Van Helsing of Godzilla. So you got this interesting character, and they'll focus on her. And I kind of wish there was more of these. I guess this didn't sell well enough, or maybe Toho didn't like what they did and didn't want to renew their license. But, Dark Horse has proven they're pretty damn good at that shit. Like, those Aliens comics are interesting as hell. Way better than the movies that were made. If the Hollywood just followed those Dark Horse comics, believe me, Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection, those comics adapted would have been so much better than those kind of crappy movies. Though they have some interesting parts, but yeah. So that's it. And now we have a really scholarly article from Stephen Bissette, 30 Years of Godzilla. You can tell by the small print here. He's just crammed as every Godzilla movie. Tells you the year it came out, a little synopsis, history behind it, producers, directors. Stephen Bissette is like, you probably know this if you know anything about him. He's a total scholar of horror movies. He's written books, done many lectures. He's a college professor now, though I think he focuses on comics. But maybe he does teach a film class too. Because, God, for decades, this guy's been just obsessed with horror films. And you can see by this article that I bet he put more work into this article than he did into this comic. The pencils. Oh, I forgot about this. This is such a treat. They got all these artists to draw pinups of Godzilla. Such an interesting lineup here. Look at this first one by Keith Giffen. This is full on when Keith Giffen was in his Munoz Sampaio. His Munoz phase. And, but this is amazing. This is something else altogether. God, that's a striking image. Almost an abstraction. Almost abstract art. It's crazy. I really like Keith Giffen, even when he was, he was a blatant plagiarist, but he was great nonetheless. Paul Chadwick of Concrete fame does this one. Never been a huge fan of Paul Chadwick's art. He's totally competent and a good artist, but I don't know, something about, there's a softness to it. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm not a big fan. Though I do like how Godzilla is chomping on this whale like it's a snack. This is amazing, guys. This is Alan Moore. I'm sure Alan Moore must be a Godzilla fan, and when he found out that Dark Horse was doing this, he said, hey, guys, I draw every now and then. I want to do a pinup. But look how good this is. Look at the detail. It's almost as detailed in art. The art is as detailed as his script writing, It's like, man, he does not skimp. I don't know if you guys ever saw My Stars, the Degradation. Wait, is it? Yeah, My Stars, My Degradation. It was a comic strip Alan Moore wrote and drew when he was like a young guy in the like 77 for an English music magazine. I think they're still on the internet. And man, he was a great cartoonist. Like, if he was born 5 years earlier, he'd probably be considered one of the great underground cartoonists because he loved undergrounds. He probably would have tried to draw for them if they weren't dead by 77. And just amazing stuff. And as you can see by this, he's really good. God, I just love all these characters. He draws like almost everyone in the crowd, like really detailed. I also like the way he depicts Godzilla's flame breath. It's like a cone of, I don't know, force. A cone of force? I don't know. I wish I had a better vocabulary. This central figure is great too, this woman. It's interesting that, I don't know if he was seeing Melinda Gebbie at the time, if they were partners, but some of this inking looks very Melinda Gebbie-ish with the pointillism. So, kind of interesting how he ended up with her. He might have already been with her and was influenced by her, but yeah, obviously there's a reason why they got together. Little mini mushroom cloud here. God, that's good stuff. But this is fucking phenomenal. Charles Vess. Look at this amazing Japanese tree here. I love this too. It's like, it's more about the tree. Godzilla's pretty much hiding. You have to kind of look at this twice. Because, oh yeah, there's Godzilla. He's hiding behind this tree. But that is just gorgeous to me. That's so good. Oh, it's always nice to see Rick Geary. God, Rick Geary is just one of the best cartoonists of all time, I think. Just such a perfect, amazing style. I don't know what the hell's going on here, but it's funny. You have an ad for Dark Horse at the time. You see, pre-Aliens, they just got Mr. Monster. Concrete was like their biggest thing then. There's Ron Randall's character, Trekker. You know, the guy who co-penciled this issue. And yeah, they had a few other titles. But yeah, Aliens put them on the map. Speaking of Aliens, this is Mark Nelson, the guy who penciled the very first, actually might have penciled and inked the very first Aliens miniseries. Probably came out a year after this or less. Very nice stuff. This guy really put the work in. Duotone, craft tint. His stuff was very lush black and white art. Good stuff. Just a very straight artist. Not stylized at all. But man, he delivered the goods. Look at these samurai. Every thing on their armor is drawn perfectly. Pretty nice. So there you go, guys. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, special #1. Hope you enjoyed watching it. And it was kind of fun looking at this again for the first time in forever. Not the best comic, you know. It's pretty good, though. And I kind of like how if Godzilla, the producers of Godzilla, turned this into the movie instead of that Matthew Broderick movie, I think people would have liked it a lot more. That movie wasn't very well received. And in retrospect, yeah, nobody likes that movie. It wasn't very good. This is a pretty decent, like, summer blockbuster in 24 pages. It would have been a pretty interesting film, I think. So there you have it. That's it for tonight's video. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.